In 1901, Queen Victoria's son, Edward VII, became king, followed by his son, George V, in 1910. These periods are also called the Edwardian and Georgian Age, and the Belle Epoque on the continent. Many of the Victorian habits of the time were still in use in country homes, but when the First World War broke out, all of this changed. The men had gone to war, so women were working in the factories and made an important contribution to the war effort. The women's suffrage movement was making progress to the extent that the authorities were starting to feel threatened. Finally, in 1918, the right to vote for men over 21 and women over 30 was granted. This meant that twice as many people were able to vote. Drama and the stage hadn't been used as a showplace for literary talent since the Restoration, but Oscar Wilde, followed by George Bernard Shaw, used it to force the audience to reconsider standard values and dealt with important issues of the time, such as socialism, capitalism, feminism, prostitution, alcoholism, religion, science, and the class system. The modernist revolution was a moment of vast expansion in ideas, technology, and attitudes that questioned religion more than ever, and people were finding it more difficult to believe in anything. In 1905, Albert Einstein published his theory of relativity. This supported the fact that science could give a satisfactory explanation to the universe. Thus, many writers and intellectuals of the time worried that the diffusion of scientific authority would reduce the need for religious and humanistic explanations for reality and life. Society was changing, and so was the family. There was more emphasis on having fun, and more people were able to enjoy the benefits of the new industries such as automotive, cinema, and radio. These also had a large effect on the language, bringing with them a huge expansion in vocabulary. Words like service station, motel, petrol, projector, screen, and gramophone entered the English vocabulary, and writing became more cinematic as descriptions of car races, flights, and wars were used in narrative. A major change in how war was described occurred after World War I. The ancient cultures had sung about wars, exalting them, whereas now it was being described with extreme disillusionment. T.S. Eliot and D.H. Lawrence expressed in their poems the idea that war serves the interest of industrial and financial oligarchy, and in The Wasteland, Eliot speaks of the decay of Western civilization and uses the stream of consciousness technique, where there is no coherent or logical order in the narrative, and abandons syntactical and grammatical connectives. James Joyce, in his novels, explores real people and their lives in Dublin in his collection of stories, Dubliners. In Ulysses, where the story follows the life of two ordinary people for a day, paralleled to the wanderings and tribulations of Homer's epic hero in the Odyssey, we see one of the greatest examples of revisiting myth. Joyce also uses the stream of consciousness technique and juxtaposes apparently incongruous images, attempting to show the chaotic flow of the human mind. Another very important novelist is Virginia Woolf, who defines the difference between the time of the clock as measurable time and the time of the mind, which can span over years and go back and forth in time. In her novels, Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lighthouse, the short units of time of the clock, one day, and 2 days, respectively, in which the novels are set are expanded by the characters' consciousness. George Orwell's disappointment in the political ideas that he had believed in and the ruling classes led him to write 2 masterpieces that deal with the oppression of the people by the establishment, that are as current today, if not more, than they were when he wrote them. Animal Farm is a satire of the Russian Revolution, and 1984 is about the modern world where a tyrannical power called Big Brother controls man's actions and thoughts with telescreens and microphones everywhere.